everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fun with Flags. I'm none other than your friendly neighborhood soda, joined as always with my brother from, I was going to say from down under, but no, you're not under, you're more east. 50.
To be honest, I'm just above the equator.
Okay. Yeah, we're well above the equator, so technically I guess that would still be underneath. Okay. Well, we're not here to talk about the equator situation, folks. No, we're here to talk about my personal topic this week. And it is something that I have been fascinated with since probably my early 20s when I found the book Frozen in Time based on this subject. 50, have you ever, before, other than what I mentioned last week, do you know what the Northwest Passage is?
Not a clue.
Okay,
I don't know any more about it than you know about the Suez Canal, where we had an episode a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, well, that is the Northwest Passage. Now, the Northwest Passage is a sea lane between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through the Arctic. Basically, it was thought for the centuries of exploration that it would be a new passage to the east, kind of like when Columbus was trying to find America type shit. And so that led to many expeditions to try to navigate it through for the first time.
And allow me to correct you. He wasn't trying to find America. He was trying to reach India.
That's right. Trying to reach
India. Happened to find America, not knowing it was there.
Right. But anyways, but that's basically what the Northwest Passage is just another sea route. And if at the time it was thought to be another route to the east. So like I said, many expeditions had been sent out to try to traverse it, to navigate it, to make a map for the first time, that sort of thing. Most of them had to turn back, but this is easily the most famous one. Like, hands down, the most famous one, to the point that there is a song written about it that's been covered quite a few times called the Northwest Passage, about this and this.
Okay. Before we start, though, is it still widely used like it was planned, or are there?
No. Like, you don't need to go that way for trade routes now because we've got planes and shit, right? Okay. And there's other ways to do it, and it can still get dangerous. Like the thing is, when it gets cold up there, the ice traps you in. So that they probably wouldn't use it for use it anymore. But there's a documentary on Disney Plus that just came out recently that I watched about the Northwest Passage, and it was this guy who's an explorer for real. He decided, him and some people went and took the route that devoted the route, but unfortunately they got trapped for like 8-9 days by the ice close to away from their route. So yeah, it's not an easy thing. It can be done now because it's been properly navigated and charted, but it's not an easy thing. You have to be really good.
Yeah. But definitely now it would be easier to cross it than back then.
Yes. Okay. So we are going to start then. So what do you see? What I have is a timeline of events and everything that's happened after the events. So, all right. So we start off in the year of 1845, where in May 19th, the expedition departs England. On June 30th, a note, like it's like a message in a bottle, was deposited from the Airbith at the 66th parallel. June and July, the crew write letters home while 5 sailors and unneeded supplies are sent back. June 22nd, the ships are seen by the whalers Prince of Wales and Enterprise in Baffin Bay, which is... Oh, I guess you can't see Baffin Bay in there. Never mind. They don't...
Can't you give it?
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. There's Baffin Bay. I brought up the wrong one. I brought up the one with Franklin's tracks. So yeah, there's Baffin Bay.
Greenland and that piece of land.
Sorry?
So between Greenland and that piece of land.
Between Greenland and Canada, yeah. And just to show you how far I am away from it, if you see Whitehorse on the map.
What, Whitehorse?
Whitehorse.
Yep, found it.
Go down. That's where I am at the map. I'm at this little island just to the left there.
I'm in there. Big island right on the border between the U.S.?
Nope, the one just above it. I'm like I'm directly east to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Northeast.
No. I'm literally east. Like if you look at that island on the map, I'm literally east.
Put it up again.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
So on the mainland then.
Yeah, I'm on the mainland. Yeah, I was just using that island as just a focus point so you can see
Okay.
where I live. All right. All right. So yeah, July 22nd, the ships are seen by the whalers Prince of Wales and Enterprise in Baffin Bay. It is the last time Europeans will see the ship in 175 years.
Oof.
Early September, after circumnavigating Cornwallis Island, the expedition anchors at Beachy Island.
Which of these islands?
It's going to be a better representation of what's of this now, because this will show all their spots. So Beachy Island is right at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see
where it says Devon's Island.
Yeah, it's on the north. It's on the southwest portion of Devon Island.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that's where it anchored for the first winter.
Oh, there it is, Beachy Island. Now I see it.
Yeah.
The tiny dot thing.
January 1st, Terror's chief stoker John Torrington dies. He was the first casualty of the expedition. January 4th, Erebus sailor John Hartnell dies. And on April 3rd, Private William Brain dies. April and May, the expedition leaves Beachy Island and sails south through Peel Sound.
Peel's, that's between the...
Yeah, so that is between Prince of Wales Island and... that's
Somerset?
Barrow Strait.
The what?
Sorry, I was mumbling to myself. Where is Peel Sound? I don't see it on here.
Is it on a different map?
Maybe, no. Anyways, the expedition attempts in August. The expedition attempts to sail around the east side of King William Island. They lose one of the boats at Maddie Island.
Oh, there is King William Island.
On September 12th, the ship becomes stuck in the ice off King William Island. They will not move for 2 years.
2 years?
No.
Do they have enough food and water for that?
We'll get there. May 24th, Lieutenant Graham Gore, mate Charles DeVoe, and 6 sailors leave the ship and head for the island. May 28th, the Gore party reaches Victory Point. They deposit a note in the cairn there, and we will be getting back to that note later.
Okay.
And just so you know what a cairn is, it's basically like it's like a nature safe box that you use to build to protect something. Basically, it's this. This is what a cairn looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. The party reaches Gore Point and deposits another note. That is on the next day, May 29th. Late May, early June, the Gore party reaches Cape Herschel on the southern coast of King William Island.
Uh-huh.
So, like, way at the bottom here.
Like, where the most bottom arrow is?
Yeah. In that area. Reaches Cape Herschel on the southern coast of King Edward Island. They deposit a note before heading back to the ships. June 11th, Sir John Franklin, the captain of the expedition, dies of currently unknown causes. Captain Francis Crozier becomes commander of the expedition. June, July, a camp is established at Cape Felix.
I think we need another map for this.
Yeah, this is literally just the trade route. Anywho, I'm going to Franklin Expedition map. Give me a second here.
Okay. Waiting.
Okay, I think I file. Yay! Perfect. I found a good one. Hopefully, this will be a good one. Gotta love this, folks.
Live TV, folks.
Even though this is going to be dropped afterwards. All right, there we go. It's in French, but hey, at least oh no, that's one French name. But hey, at least we got everything now.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, a camp is established at Cape Felix, which I actually don't see on here. Fuck.
Let me just see if we can follow the rule. That's King William, Georgia Heaven, Adelaide Peninsula, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume so. Um,
Between Erebus and Tenor.
and I think that makes sense in that area. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So late December and early January, the men from the summer camp make a hasty retreat back to the ships. In 1848, the officers begin debating what they will do if the ice doesn't open up. Sometime between January and April of that year, Lieutenant Gore died, and then on April 22nd, Captain Crozier and 104 sailors desert the ships and head for the island. Now, that's the picture we are using as the background here. Just give me a second to quickly upload it. So this is a depiction of that. There are a lot of art surrounding this expedition.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Let's see.
This was 1800s. So
1848 we're in right now.
So late Baroque period.
Yeah. To give you an idea. All right. So April 25th, the Victory Point note is updated. By this point, 9 officers and 15 sailors are dead.
How many?
At this point, 9 officers and 15 sailors in just 2 years. Three years.
And by the way, this is the Impressionist era, not Baroque. I was off by about 100 years.
Okay, April 26th, the camp is deserted and the men head south. Late April, early May, the ice opens up and the men head back to the ships. Around this time, Lieutenant John Irving dies and is buried near the camp. Summer. Crozier sends a party of 8 men south on a scouting trip to find a suitable camp for the winter. 1 officer and 1 sailor die during this mission. In September, the expedition harbors at what will later become Erebus Bay, named after, obviously, the ship.
Okay.
November 8th, the sun sets for the last time that year. Spring of 1849. The expedition leaves Erebus Bay and sails south. 2 boats and 7 to 11 men stay behind. Summer, the ship arrive at Terror Bay. The sailors name it Comfort Cove. September, October, the crew encounter Inuit hunters, which is actually very important.
There are Inuit on Victoria Island or on the mainland?
Well, up in that area is where the Inuit live.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So just remember the crew encountering any Inuit hunters, that does come into play later. September, October, again, an event known as the Big Hunting occurs, in which the Franklin sailors and the Inuit shoot a large number of wildfowl in the area. Expedition commanders Francis Crozier and James Fitzsimmons order the abandonment of the 2 vessels, which remained... Oh, where the hell did that come from? That shouldn't be in there. I think I might have actually copied and pasted something from somewhere else. Anywho. Oh, no. This is correct. This actually does belong here. Never mind. Expedition and commanders Francis Crozier and James Fitzjames. Yes, his name was James Fitzjames. Order the abandonment.
Not the craziest I've ever seen or heard.
Order the abandonment of the 2 vessels. Because, we are in the right timeline. Yeah, so this is definitely part of it. They order the abandonment of the 2 vessels, which remain trapped in the ice of Victoria Strait, and lead the ship's crews across the ice to reestablish themselves on the western shores of King William Island. By then, 24 men, including 9 officers, had died. So now they have a completely abandoned ship.
How many people were on that expedition when they started?
You know what? It doesn't.
Like, what? That doesn't even say what did they die from.
Yeah, it will later, because a lot of those type of questions will be answered.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just quickly on the Wikipedia page. So the a total of 129 officers and men, so 129 people in total.
Mm-hmm.
That's how many we're on. We're on between the 2 ships. All right, and a final note from the timeline. Circa 1852 to 1858, Captain Crozier and at least one other man are seen by Inuit in the lake area. It is the last known sighting of the Franklin sailors. Only limited information is available for the previous events, pieced together over the next 150 years by other expeditions, explorers, scientists, and interviews with Inuit. The only first-hand information on the expedition's progress is the 2-part Victory Point note, which I actually do have a little section on in a bit. Franklin's men spent the winter of 1845 to 1846 on Beechy Island, where 3 crew members died and were buried. After traveling down Peel Sound through the summer, Terror and Erebus became trapped in ice in September of 1846 and were thought never to have sailed again, or are thought to have never sailed again. According to the second part of the Victory Point note, dated April 25th, 1948, and signed by Fitzjames and Crozier, the crew had wintered off King Edward Island in 1846-47 and 1847-48, and Franklin had died on June 11th, 1847. The remaining crew had abandoned the ships and planned to walk over the island and across the sea ice towards the Back River on the Canadian mainline, beginning on April 26th, 1848. In addition to Franklin, 8 further officers and 15 men had also died by this point. The Victory Point note is the last known communication of the expedition. From archaeological finds, it is believed that all of the remaining crew died on the subsequent 400-kilometer, 250-mile long march to Back River, most on the island. 30 or 40 men reached the northern coast of the mainland before dying, still hundreds of miles from the nearest outpost of Western civilization. So the Victory Point note here was found 11 years later in May 1859 by William Hobson, who was lieutenant of the McClintock Arctic Expedition. Placed in a cairn on the northwestern coast of King Edward Island. It consists of 2 parts of a pre-printed Admiralty form. The first part was written after the first overwintering in 1847. The second part was added 1 year later. For the second part, it can be inferred that the document was first deposited in a different cairn previously erected by James Clark Ross in 1830 during John Ross's second Arctic expedition. The document is therefore referred to as at a location Ross named Victory Point. The document is therefore referred to as Victory Point Note. The first message is written in the body of the form and dates from May 28, 1847. HMS ships Erebus and Terror wintered in the ice in latitude 7. They give that, and I can't remember how to say it.
The coordinates.
I can't remember how to actually pronounce to say coordinates. So I'm just not going to try. Having wintered in 1846-7 in Beechy Island in latitude after having ascended Wellington Channel on latitude 77 degrees and returned by the west side of Cornwallis Island, Sir John Franklin commanding the expedition, all well. Party consisting of 2 officers and 6 men left the ships on Monday, May 24th, 1847. Signed, G.M. Gore, Lieutenant. The second part is largely written on the margins of the form, owing to a lack of remaining space on the document. It was presumably written on the 25th of April, 1848. 25th of April, 1848, HM ships Terror and Erebus were deserted on the 22nd April, 5 leagues northwest of this, having been beset since 12th September, 1846. The officers and crews, consisting of 105 souls, under the command of Captain F.R.M. Crozier, landed here in longitude. This paper was found by Lieutenant Irving under the cairn supposedly to have been built by Sir James Ross in 1831, 4 miles to the northward, where it had been deposited by the late Commander Gore in 1847. Sir James Ross's pillar has not, however, been found, and the paper has been transferred to this position, which is that in which, wow, man, reading Old English is tough. Is that
maybe you should have proofread it beforehand?
Well, no, I'm literally just reading what's off of there. I'm not going to do that. Come on, that's disrespectful.
Just proofread it and then just change it around to something more comfortable for you to read.
Anyway,
what I do.
Which is that in which Sir J. Ross's pillar was erected. Sir John Franklin died on 11th of June, 1847, and the total loss by deaths in the expedition has been, to this date, 9 officers and 15 men. Signed, James Fitzjames, Captain, HMS Erebus. Signed, F.R.M. Crozier, Captain and Senior Officer. And starting tomorrow, 26th, for Back's Fish River. In 1859, Hobson found the second document using the same Admiralty or found a second document using the same admiralty from containing an almost identical duplicate of the first message from 1847 in a cairn a few miles southwest at Gore Point. Now, that is one of the two pictures I put up here. I just forgot to put which one it was. So it's either that one or that one.
All right.
This document did not contain the second message. From the handwriting, it is assumed that all messages were written by Fitzjames. As he did not take part in the landing party that deposited the notes originally in 1847, it is inferred that both documents were originally filled in by James on board the ships, with Lieutenant Graham Gore and mate Charles Frederick DeVoe adding their signatures as members of the landing party. This is further supported by the fact that both documents contain the same factual errors, namely the wrong date on the wintering on Beechey Island. In 1848, after the abandonment, how they fucking know that, I don't know. In 1848, after the abandonment of the ships and subsequent recovery of the document from the Victory Port cairn, Fitzjames added the second message signed by him and Crozier and deposited the note in the cairn found by Hobson 11 years later. After 2 years had passed with no word from Franklin, public concern grew, and Jane, Lady Franklin, so his wife, as well as members of the Parliament of the United Kingdom and British newspapers, urged the Admiralty to send a search party. Although the Admiralty said it did not feel any reason to be alarmed, it responded by developing a three-pronged plan, which in the spring of 1848 sent an overland rescue party led by John Richardson and John Ray down the Mackenzie River in the Canadian Arctic coast. 2 expeditions by sea were also launched, one led by James Clark Ross, entering the Canadian Arctic archipelago through Lancaster Sound. And I wonder if you can see on that one, this one. No. Oh, yeah, on this one. Okay, perfect. Down the Mackenzie River. Oh, that one you don't see. Anywho. Arctic archipelago through Lancaster Sound, and the other commanded by Henry Kellett, entering from the Pacific. In addition, the Admiralty offered a reward of £20,000, £2,136,300 as of 2023, to any part or parties of any country who shall render assistance to the crews of the Discovery ships under the command of Sir John Franklin. When the three-pronged effort failed, British national concern and interest in the Arctic increased until, quote, finding Franklin became nothing less than a crusade, unquote. Ballads such as Lady Franklin's Lament, commemorating Lady Franklin's search for her lost husband, became popular. Many joined the search. In 1850, 11 British and 2 American ships cruised the Canadian Arctic, including the Breadalbane and her sister ship HMS Phoenix. Several converged off the east coast of Beechey Island, where the first relics of the expedition were found, including remnants of a winter camp from 1845 to 1846. Robert Goodsir, surgeon on the brig Lady Franklin, found the graves of John Torrington, Robert Hartnell, and William Brain. No messages from the Franklin expedition were found at this site. In the spring of 1851, passengers and crew aboard several ships observed a huge iceberg off Newfoundland, which bore 2 vessels, one on right and one on its beam ends. The ships were not examined closely. It was suggested at the time that the ships could have been Erebus and Terror, but it is now known that they were not. It is likely that they were abandoned whaling ships. In 1852, Edward Belcher was given command of the Arctic expedition in search of Franklin. It was unsuccessful. Belcher's inability to render himself popular with his subordinates was peculiarly unfortunate on an Arctic voyage, and he was not wholly suited to commanding vessels among ice. 4 of the 5 ships were abandoned in pack ice, for which Belcher was court-martialed but acquitted. One of these ships, which you might recognize the name, HMS Resolute, was eventually recovered intact by an American whaler and returned to the United Kingdom. Timbers from the ship were later used to manufacture 3 desks, one of which, the Resolute desk, which I should have grabbed a picture of, was presented by Queen Victoria to U.S. President Rutherford B. Hayes. It has often been chosen by presidents for use in the Oval Office in the White House, which, if you see National Treasure 2, is a really key scene.
Oh, so it's that desk.
It's that desk.
It was made from one of the ships?
It was made from one of the ships that went to try to find the expedition.
Man, National Treasure just got a whole lot deeper.
Right? In 1854, Ray, while surveying the Boothia Peninsula for the HBC, Hudson's Bay Company, by the way, discovered further evidence of the expedition's fate. Ray met an Inuk near Pelly Bay, now Kugaruk, Nunavut, on the 21st of April, 1854, who told him of a party of 35 to 40 white men who had died of starvation near the mouth of Back River. Other Inuit confirmed this story, which included reports of cannibalism among the dying sailors. The Inuit showed Ray many objects that were identified as having belonged to members of the Franklin expedition. In particular, Ray brought from the Inuit several silver forks and spoons later identified as belonging to Franklin, Fitzjames, Crozier, and Sir James Walter Fairholme and Robert Orme Sargent, two crew members from Erebus. Ray's report was sent to the Admiralty, which in 1854 urged the Hudson's Bay Company to send an expedition down the Back River to search for other signs of Franklin and his men. Next up were Chief Factor James Anderson and Hudson's Bay Company employee James Stewart, who traveled north by canoe to the mouth of the Back River. In July 1855, a band of Inuit told them of a group of Kalunat, which is the Inuktitut language words for whites or Europeans, perhaps best translated as foreigners, who had starved to death among the coast. In August, Anderson and Stewart found a piece of wood inscribed with Erebus and another that said Mr. Stanley, surgeon aboard Erebus, on Montreal Island in Chantry Inlet, where the Back River meets the sea. Despite the findings of Ray and Anderson, the Admiralty did not plan another search of its own. The Royal Navy officially labeled the crew deceased in service on the 31st of March, 1854. Lady Franklin, failing to convince the government to fund another search, personally commissioned one more expedition under Francis Leopold McClintock. The expedition ship, the steam schooner Fox, bought via public subscription, sailed from Aberdeen, Scotland, on July 2nd, 1857. In April,
Leopold McClintock? That sounds familiar.
Doesn't it? Yeah. Oh. In April 1859, sled parties set out from Fox to search on King Edward Island. On the 5th of May, the party led by Lieutenant William Hobson discovered the Victory Point note, which detailed the abandonment of Erebus and Terror, death of Franklin and other crew members, and the decision by the survivors to march south to the mainland. On the western extreme of King Edward William Island, Hobson also discovered a lifeboat containing 2 human skeletons and relics from the Franklin expedition. In the boat was a large amount of abandoned equipment, including boots, silk handkerchiefs, scented soap, sponges, slippers, hair combs, and many books, among them a copy of The Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith. Elsewhere, on the island's southern coast, McClintock searchers found another skeleton. Still clothed, it was searched, and some papers were found, including a seaman's certificate for Chief Petty Officer Harry Pegler of Terror. However, since the uniform was that of a ship steward, it is most likely the body was that of Thomas Armitage, gunroom steward on Terror and a shipmate of Pegler, whose papers he carried. McClintock himself took testimony from the Inuit about the expedition's disastrous end. 2 expeditions between 1860 and 1869 by Charles Francis Hall, who lived among the Inuit near Frobisher Bay on Baffin Island, and later Repulse Bay on the Canadian mainland, found camps, graves, and relics on the southern coast of King Edward Island. But he believed none of the Franklin survivors would be found among the Inuit. In 1869, local Inuit took Hall to a shallow grave on the island containing well-preserved skeletal remains and fragments of clothing. These remains were taken to England and interned beneath the Franklin Memorial at Greenwich Old Royal Naval College, London. The eminent biologist Thomas Henry Huxley examined the remains and concluded that they belonged to Henry Thomas Dundas Le Vicomte, second lieutenant on Erebus. An examination in 2009 suggested that these were actually the remains of Harry Goodsir, assistant surgeon on Erebus. Although Hall concluded that all the Franklin crew were dead, he believed that the official expedition records would yet be found under a stone cairn. With the assistance of his guides Ippervik and Takulituk, Hall gathered hundreds of pages of Inuit testimony. All right, I'm going to go get a drink of water real quick. We're just going to wheel my chair over there. What are your thoughts so far, my dude?
Not much.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a little hard to visualize this with what I'm seeing is half a map.
Well, that's because the pictures are going to be coming up shortly.
Okay.
Because honestly, a lot of the stuff I would just describe happened in the 1800s. No pictures.
Well, yeah, but I mean, someone a few years after the fact could have at least tried to describe a little bit of that what happened on a map, or at least.
I was just doing this to at least give people an idea of where places were that I'm talking about. Okay. Among these materials were accounts of visits to Franklin's ships and an encounter with a party of white men on the southern coast of King William Island near Washington Bay. In the 1990s, this testimony was extensively researched by David C. Woodman and was the basis of 2 books, Unraveling the Franklin Mystery and Strangers Among Us, in which he reconstructs the final month of the expedition. Woodman's narrative challenged existing theories that all the survivors perished over the remainder of 1848 as they marched south from Victory Point, arguing instead that Inuit accounts point strongly to most of the 105 survivors cited by Crozier in his final note actually surviving past 1848, remanning at least one of the ships and managing to sail it down along the coast of King William Island before it sank, with some crew members surviving as late as 1851. The hope of finding another additional expedition records, finding other additional expedition records, led Lieutenant Frederick Schwatka of the United States Army to the first time I read that, I had to double check because I almost thought it said swastika.
Schwatka.
Yeah. The United States Army to organize an expedition to King William Island between 1878 and 1880. Traveling to Hudson Bay on the schooner Yothan, Schwatka, assembling a team that included Inuit who had assisted Hull, continued north by foot and dog sled, interviewing Inuit, visiting known or likely sites of Franklin expedition remains, and wintering on the island. Although Schwatka failed to find the hoped-for papers, in a speech at a dinner given in his honor by the American Geographical Society in 1880, he said that his expedition had made the longest sledge journey ever made, both in regard to time and distance, of 11 months and 4 days, and at 4,360 kilometers, or 2,710 miles. That it was the first Arctic expedition in which the whites relied entirely on the same diet as the Inuit, and that it was established the loss of the Franklin records beyond all reasonable doubt. However, Schwatka was successful in locating the remains of one of Franklin's men, identified by personal effects as John Irving, 3rd Lieutenant aboard Terror. Schwatka had Irving's remains returned to Scotland, where they were buried with full honors at Dean's Cemetery in Edinburgh on the 7th of January, 1881.
Wow, that took a long time.
Mm-hmm. The Schwatka expedition found no remnants of the Franklin expedition south of a place now known as Starvation Cove on the Adelaide Peninsula. Kind of appropriate name, huh?
Yeah, I wonder where they got that name.
Yeah. All right, I'm actually just going to take this down now. This was about 64 kilometers or 40 miles north of Crozier's slated goal, the Black River, and several hundred miles away from the nearest western outpost on the Great Slave Lake. Woodman wrote of Inuit reports that between 1852 and 1858, Crozier and one other expedition member were seen in the Baker Lake area, about 400 kilometers to the south, where in 1948, Farley Mowat, famed Canadian author, found a very ancient cairn, not of normal Eskimo construction, inside which were shreds of a hardwood box with dovetailed joints. Don't know if it belonged to them or not.
Yeah, you never know.
Now, in June of 1981, a professor of Owen Beatty, a professor of anthropology at the University of Alberta, began the 1845 to 1848 Franklin Expedition Forensic Anthropology Project, or FIFAP, where he and his team, right?
Like the football thing.
Yeah, gotta love acronyms like the weenus.
I guess that's just your body's way of telling you don't make fun of acronyms.
I curse you, weenus.
Curse you, weenus.
I just started watching Friends a bit lately.
I wonder why.
Actually, I wasn't going to originally. But I was doing my laundry on folding my laundry on Sunday, so in my TV, my room, I just threw on the reunion,
Mm.
and that got me wanting to watch it again. So was not intended. Okay.
Understandable.
Okay. So began FIFAP when he and his team of researchers and field assistants traveled from Edmonton to King William Island, traversing the island's western coast as Franklin's men did 132 years before. FIFAP hoped to find artifacts and skeletal remains in order to use modern forensics to establish identities and causes of death among the lost 129 crew members. Although the trek found archaeological artifacts related to 19th century Europeans and undisturbed, disarticulated human remains, Beatty was disappointed that more remains were not found. Examining the bones of Franklin crewmen, he noted areas of pitting and scaling often found in cases of vitamin C deficiency, the cause of scurvy. After returning to Edmonton, he compared notes from the survey with James Saville, an Arctic archaeologist, and noticed skeletal patterns suggesting cannibalism. Seeking information about the Franklin crew's health and diet, he sent bone samples to the Alberta Soil and Feed Testing Laboratory for trace element analysis and assembled another team to visit King Edward Island. The analysis would find an unexpected level of 226 parts per million, ppm, of lead in the crewmen's bones, which was 10 times higher than the control samples taken from Inuit skeletons from the same geographical area of 26 to 36 ppm. In June of 1982, a team made up of Beatty and 3 students, Walt Cowell, a graduate student of anthropology at University of Alberta, Arne Carlson, an archaeology and geography student from Simon Fraser University in BC, hey, and Arsian Tunglagik. Yes, that's his name, Tunglagik. An Inuk student and field assistant. Yep. Tungilik. Tungalink. No. Yep. Anywho, was flown to the west coast of King Edward Island, where they retraced some of the steps of McClintock in 1859 and Schwatka in 78-79. Discoveries during this expedition included the remains of between 6 and 14 men in the vicinity of McClintock's boat place. And artifacts include a complete boot sole filled with makeshift cleats for better traction. After returning to Edmonton in 1982 and learning of the lead level findings from the 1981 expedition, Beatty struggled to find a cause. Possibilities include the lead solder used to seal the expedition's tin food cans, which is, here's an example of one found. Other food containers lined with lead foil, food coloring, tobacco products, pewter tableware, and lead-wick candles. Came to suspect that the problems of lead poisoning compounded by the effects of scurvy could have been lethal for the Franklin crew. However, because skeletal lead might reflect lifetime exposure rather than exposure limited to the voyage, Beatty's theory could be tested only by forensic examination of preserved soft tissue as opposed to bone. Beatty decided to examine the graves of the buried crewmen on Beechy Island. After obtaining legal permission, Beatty's team visited Beechy Island in August 1884 to perform autopsies on the 3 crewmen buried there. They started with John Torrington, the first crew member to die.
Yee.
After completing Torrington's autopsy and exhuming and briefly examining the body of Will Hartnell, there's another Torrington picture. This is
Will Hartnell?
No, this is Will Hartnell.
No, John Hartnell. I've been listening to the names you've been throwing at. There was a different William.
Yeah, there was a few Williams, but this is
because Will Hartnell's the doctor.
It's probably what was on my mind. But yeah, the body of Will Hartnell, the team, pressed for time and threatened by weather, returned to an expedition with tissue and bone samples. Yeah, like I said, this one right here is probably the most famous picture of those bodies. Because, I mean, like, look at how so well preserved they still are.
Well, ice.
Yeah.
Cold.
Yeah. During the expedition, the team sorry, I jumped ahead. Yeah, they returned to Edmonton with tissue and bone samples. Trace element analysis of Torrington's bones and hair indicated that the crewmen would have suffered severe mental and physical problems caused by lead poisoning. Although the autopsy indicated that pneumonia had been the ultimate cause of the crewman's death, lead poisoning was cited as a contributing factor. During the expedition, the team visited a place about 1 kilometer north of the grave site to examine fragments of hundreds of food tins. Of hundreds of food tins soldered with lead, which likely had come in direct contact with the food. The release of findings from the 1984 expedition and the photo of Torrington, a 138-year-old corpse well preserved by Arctic permafrost, led to wide media coverage and renewed interest in the Franklin expedition.
So, did they found him just buried under the ice?
Yeah. Not under the ice, under the ground. But the ground was frozen solid. Like, he was buried on the island.
So that explains why he was so well preserved.
Oh, yeah. It's remarkable. And they actually, you might come up later. Oh, yeah. But a couple years later, they did exhume the other guy, a brain. Subsequent research had suggested that another potential source for the lead may have been the ship's distilled water systems rather than the tinned food. KTH Farrer argued that it's impossible to see how one could ingest from the canned food the amount of lead, 3.3 milligrams per day over 8 months, required to raise the pHb up to the level. Fuck me, I'm not reading that part. I've never seen that unit of measurement before. Anyways, at which symptoms of lead poisoning begin to appear in adults, and the suggestion that bone lead in adults could be swamped by lead ingested from food over a period of a few months, or even 3 years, seems scarcely tenable. In addition, tinned food was in widespread use within the Royal Navy at the time, and its use did not lead to any significant increase in lead poisoning elsewhere. However, and uniquely for this expedition only, the ships were fitted with converted railway locomotive engines for auxiliary propulsion, which required an estimated 1 ton of fresh water per hour when steaming. It is highly probable that it was for this reason that the ships were fitted with a unique desalination system, which, given the material in use at the time, would have produced large quantities of water with a very high lead content.
I'm not sure you measure water by tons, though.
That's just what it says here.
I'm pretty sure it's cubic centimeters. I think. I don't know. But if that's what it says, then that's what it says.
William Battersby had argued that this is a much more likely source for the high levels of lead observed in the remains of expedition members than the tinned food. A further survey of the graves was undertaken in 1986. The camera crew filmed the procedure, shown in a 1988 episode of the American program Nova, which I love watching episodes of, if you like watching documentaries. Under difficult field conditions, Derek Notman, a radiologist and medical doctor for the University of Minnesota, and radiology technician Larry Anderson took many x-rays of the crewmen prior to autopsy. Barbara Schweger, an Arctic clothing specialist, and Roger Amy, a pathologist, assisted in the investigation. Beatty and his team had noticed that someone else had attempted to exhume Hartnell. In the effort, a pickaxe had damaged the wooden lid of his coffin. And the coffin plaque was missing. Research in Edmonton later showed that Sir Edward Belcher, commander of one of the Franklin rescue expeditions, had ordered the exhumation of Hartnell in October of 1852, but was thwarted by the permafrost. 1 month later, Edward A. Inglefield, commander of another rescue expedition, succeeded with the exhumation and removed the coffin's plaque.
What's the red stuff in the coffin? That can't be his hair, right?
That's his toque.
Is what?
Toque.
And that would be?
Right, I forget. You wouldn't know what a fucking toque is. Here, I'll
full of a toque.
It's easier to show you than to describe it.
Of course, he's got one lying around.
I'm Canadian. It's for winter. This is a toque. You've probably seen people wear these in movies. They're also known as beanies.
Yeah, it's a beanie.
Yeah, we call them toques.
All right, I didn't know that. That's what they're called over there.
No, we call them toques here because we have to wear them.
Full of a toque.
Unlike Hartnell's grave, the grave of Private William Brain was largely intact. While he was exhumed, the survey team saw signs that his burial had been hasty. His arms, body, and head had not been positioned carefully in the coffin, and one of his undershirts had been put on backwards. The coffin seemed too small for him. Its lid was pressed down on his nose. Which, if you actually look, his nose is turned up a little bit.
Yeah.
A large copper plaque with his name and other personal data punched into it adorned his coffin lid. In 1992, Franklin scholar Barry Ranford and his colleague Mike Yaroshkevich discovered human skeletal remains and artifacts of what they suspected to be some of the lost crewmen of the expedition. The site matches the physical description of McClintock's boat place. In 1993, a team of archaeologists and forensic anthropologists returned to the site, which they referenced as NGL-J-2, on the western shores of King Edward Island to excavate these remains. These artifacts uncovered nearly 400 bones and bone fragments and physical artifacts ranging from pieces of clay pipes to buttons and brass fittings. Examination of these bones by Anne Keenleyside, the expedition's forensic scientist, showed elevated levels of lead and many cut marks consistent with defleshing. On the basis of this expedition, it has become generally accepted that at least some of Franklin's men resorted to cannibalism in their final distress. So there you go. That one confirmed it. A study published in the International Journal of Osteoarchaeology in 2015 concluded that in addition to the defleshing of bones, 35 bones had signs of breakage and pot polishing, which occurs when the ends of the bones, heated in boiling water, rub against the cooking pot they are placed in, which typically occurs in the last stage of cannibalism when starving people extract the marrow to eke out the last bit of calories and nutrition they can. Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever turn to cannibalism, no matter how dire the situation is.
Yep. All right. In 1994, we're almost done, by the way. This is the last page of notes.
Wait. Say the name again. So the year again?
1994, the year you were born.
The year after, but never mind.
Sorry.
The year of the Lion King. Could have just said that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just missing the last actually little bit of this. Hold on a second. Okay. Anyways, in 1994, Woodman organized and led a land search of the area from Collinson Inlet to modern Victory Point in search of the buried vaults, quote unquote, spoken of in the testimony of the contemporary Inuit scavenger Suppinger. A 10-person team spent 10 days in the search, sponsored by the Royal Canadian Geographical Society and filmed by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or the CBC. No trace of the vaults were found. In 1995, an expedition was jointly organized by Woodman, George Hobson, and American adventurer Stephen Trafton, with each party planning a separate search. Trafton's group traveled to the Clarence Islands to investigate Inuit stories of a white man's cairn there, but found nothing. Hobson's party, accompanied by archaeologist Margaret Bertulli, investigated the summer camp, found a few miles to the south of Cape Felix, where some minor Franklin relics were found. Woodman, with two companions, traveled south from Wall Bay and to Victory Point and investigated all likely campsites along this coast, finding only some rusted cans at a previously unknown campsite near Camp Maria Luisa. Sorry, just give me 1 second here.
That came from me or you?
That was me.
Oh.
Going back into Microsoft Word for a second because I am missing something. Yeah, I'm missing the last page. It's okay, I've got it here though. Okay, move that there. In 1997, a Franklin 150 expedition was mounted by the Canadian film company Econova to use sonar to investigate more of the priority magnetic targets found in 1992. The senior archaeologist was Robert Grenier, assisted by Margaret Bertulli, and Woodman again acted as expedition historian and search coordinator. Operations were conducted from the Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker Laurier. Approximately 40 square kilometers were surveyed without result near Kirkwall Island. When detached parties found Franklin relics, particularly copper sheeting and small items on the beaches of islets to the north of O'Reilly Island, The search was diverted to that area, but poor weather prevented significant survey work before the expedition ended. The documentary, Oceans of Mystery, Search for the Lost Fleet, was produced by Econova about this expedition. 3 expeditions were mounted by Woodman to continue the magnetometer mapping of the proposed wreck sites. A privately sponsored expedition in 2001 and the Irish-Canadian Franklin search expeditions in 2002 and 2004. These made use of sled-drawn magnetometers working on the sea ice and completed the unfinished survey of the northern Kirkwall Island search area in 2001 and the entire southern O'Reilly Island area in 2002 and 2004. All the high-priority magnetic targets were identified by sonar through ice as geological in origin. In 2002 and 2004, small Franklin artifacts and characteristic explorer tent sites were found on a small islet northeast of O'Reilly Island between shore searches. In 2008, a new search by Parks Canada was announced to be led by Grenier. This search hoped to take advantage of the improved ice conditions using side-scan sonar from a boat in open water. Grenier also hoped to draw from newly established Inuit testimony collected by oral historian Dorothy Harley Eber. Some of Eber's informants placed the location of one of Franklin's ships in the vicinity of the Royal Geographical Society Island, an area not searched by previous expeditions. The search was to also include local Inuit historian Louis Kemikak. Yep, that's how it's. Yep, who had found other significant remains of the expedition and would represent the Indigenous culture, because that is one thing that is actually big in this area. Is if you do something like that on Indigenous lands, you should have an Indigenous representative. That's just the way it is, and
Makes
should.
sense.
HMS Investigator became icebound in 1853 while searching for Franklin's expedition. It was subsequently abandoned. It was found in shallow water in Mercy Bay on July 25th, 2010, along the northern coast of Banks Island in Canada's Western Arctic. The Parks Canada team recorded that it was in good shape, upright in about 11 meters of water. So that's one of the ships that went to go find it.
Mm-hmm.
A new search was announced by Parks Canada in August of 2013. Now, on September 1st, 2014, a larger search by a Canadian team under the banner of the Victoria Strait Expedition found 2 items on Hat Island in the Queen Maud Gulf near King William Island. A wooden object, possibly a plug for a deck hawse, the iron pipe through which the ship's chain cable would descend into the chain locker below, and part of a boat launching davit bearing the stamps of 2 Royal Navy broad arrows. On September 9th, 2014, the expedition announced that on September 7th, it had located one of Franklin's 2 ships. So in 2014, that's how long it took.
Ice, man. Gotta wait for the ice cap to melt. So global warming is helping here.
So it was the Erebus.
And that's how they found it?
That's with sonar.
Oh, okay. Got it. Eesh.
That's underwater, yeah. The ship is preserved in good condition with side scan sonar picking up even the deck paneling. The deck planking, sorry. The wreck lies in about 11 meters of water at the bottom of Wilmot and Crampton Bay in the eastern part of Queen Maud Gulf, west of Riley Island. On October 1st, at the House of Commons, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper confirmed the wreck was that of HMS Erebus. A documentary, Hunt for the Arctic Ghost Ship, was produced by Lion Television for Channel 4 Secret History Series in 2015. It's actually a really good documentary. In September 2018, Parks Canada announced that Erebus had deteriorated significantly. An upwards buoyant force acting on the decking combined with storm swell and relatively shallow water caused the displacement, according to a spokesperson. The underwater exploration in 2018 totaled only a day and a half due to weather and ice conditions and was to continue in 2019. Also in September 2018, a report provided specifics as to ownership of the ships and contents. The United Kingdom will own the first 65 artifacts brought up from Erebus, while the wreck of both ships and other artifacts will be jointly owned by Canada and the Inuit. And on September 12th, 2016, it was announced that the Arctic Research Foundation expedition had found the wreck of the HMS Terror to the south
We're gonna ask about that one.
to the south of King Edward Island in Terror Bay, and in pristine condition. In 2018, a team examining the wreck of Terror using a remotely operated underwater vehicle that collected photos and video clips of the ship and a number of artifacts. The group concluded that Terror had not been left at anchor since anchor cables were seen to be secured along the way. And unfortunately, there was more expeditions planned, but COVID canceled those.
Yep.
And that is where we are at with the Franklin expedition.
Damn COVID.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on that 200-year journey?
Well, it was a few-year journey. It took 200 years to find them.
Yeah.
There's a difference. What? So did they ever actually get to the other side, or?
No. Well, yeah, I mean, like, these guys never did. They never made it. It was I don't know what year it actually was finally. They finally reached the end.
Did someone actually complete the journey?
Oh yeah, they did. They eventually did.
Sounds like the intentions were good. Open a trade route from one ocean to the other, but the conditions are just so appalling that
there's no point.
It's a suicide journey, especially with the technology back then. And let's be real here, the ice cap back then.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things, like every documentary I've seen about the Northwest Passage where they have modern day boats up there and stuff, they always show the ice and how like dangerous it can be. And like I said, that one documentary, they got stuck behind the ice for at least a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's an end for my topic. My voice and nose are gone. Ugh. So what is yours, my friend?
Well, see, I was thinking, and you actually gave me a bit of an idea with these old documents right here. I was thinking, since last week we talked about the national anthem of the state of Israel, I thought, well, why won't we just stay in the same general area and talk about the Israeli Declaration of Independence?
Oh, nice.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the background and the situation around the area when it was written and read out loud in front of a crowd. And I'm just going to read out the entire thing, line per line, translated, of course, and explain what it means. And if there's such a passage, a point, a part of the declaration would be worth talking about further, I'll stop and focus on that for a few minutes, and then we can move on. So that's the plan here, at least.
All right, sounds like fun.
Yep. So, me plugs are first, or your plugs first?
I'll do mine first. You can find me in my personal Instagram at soda_the_saxman. You can find me here on the Northern Entertainment Group, up to the usual shenanigans with 50. And you can find me over on the Sodayan Network whenever we feel like recording. So, yeah.
And you can find me every Monday on The Great Show on the Galaxy on this channel, and every Thursday on this show, Fun with Flags, on this channel as well. And I also have my own YouTube channel where 50 Shades of Geek, where I talk about Doctor Who. I do Doctor Who reviews from every single episode from 1963 all the way to 2023, because the specials are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also find all the other wonderful channels on the Benverse, like Something to Talk About, the aforementioned Sodagan Wrestling, Galaxy Geeks, Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, 8-Time Reviews, and of course in the front row. So do you want to continue with the plugs, or should I do the final?
Yeah, and well, yeah, might as well. So on behalf of us, and as always for this beautiful bastard, thank you for watching, and don't forget to let your geek flag fly this week, man. Sometimes sometimes it'll cheer you up.
Yep.
All right, folks. See you later. As I get to that.